He walked into the courtroom like he owned it, didn't stand, didn't nod, didn't even look at the judge. Why? Because she was a black woman. But what he thought was just another hearing turned into a public reckoning. What this judge did next didn't just silence the billionaire. It shook the entire courtroom and set the internet on fire. You won't believe what happened next. Darren Langley didn't walk. He glided into the courtroom, flanked by 3 lawyers and a smug grin that screamed untouchable. Billionaire tech CEO, celebrity investor. Headlines hailed him as a visionary. But today he wasn't here to launch another app. He was here to answer for fraud, workplace abuse, and tax evasion. Everyone rose as the judge entered, except Darren. He stayed seated, scrolling through his phone like he was in a board meeting. His lawyer nudged him. He waved it off. "She's just a judge," he muttered. "And a black one at that." Judge Alana Brooks, however, wasn't just a judge. She was known as the Iron Gavel of the East Coast, respected, feared, and undefeated in holding the powerful accountable. Calm, composed, and intelligent, she scanned the courtroom and instantly clocked the insult. But she didn't flinch. She didn't scold. She simply sat and watched. Darren smirked, thinking he'd won some kind of invisible battle. After all, in his world, money trumped manners. Power bought silence. And respect was earned only by status. But what Darren didn't know, what he never saw coming, was that this woman he refused to stand for was about to make the entire country rise to their feet. Because this wasn't going to be a formality. This was going to be history. The courtroom echoed with quiet tension as Judge Alana Brooks opened the file. Darren lounged in his chair, legs crossed, whispering jokes to his attorney. He wasn't nervous, he was bored. Every time the prosecution made a point, Darren chuckled. When a former employee testified, tears in her eyes, describing months of unpaid overtime and workplace harassment, he rolled his eyes. "Spare me." "The drama," he whispered. Judge Brooks tapped her gavel, her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "Mr. Langley, this is not a playground. You may find this process beneath you, but rest assured, the law does not find you above it." The room froze. Darren sat up slightly, surprised by her tone. "I don't answer to lectures," he fired back, smirking. "Especially not from someone who probably had to tick a few diversity boxes to get up there." Gasps, audible ones. Judge Brooks didn't blink. She turned the page calmly, then said, "Very well. Let the record reflect Mr. Langley's complete disregard for both this court and common human decency. We'll proceed accordingly." For the next hour, she dismantled his defense with surgical precision. Emails he thought deleted, testimonies he thought silenced, financial records he thought buried. Every lie was met with hard truth, every smirk faded. And for the first time in years, Darren Langley looked cornered. This wasn't a judge playing politics. This wasn't a woman intimidated by wealth. This was justice, and it had just found its voice. By the time closing arguments were done, Darren Langley's swagger had vanished. His once confident smile was replaced by a clenched jaw and restless fingers. For the first time, he wasn't in control. The courtroom sat in silence as judge. Brooks prepared to deliver her verdict. Cameras were rolling. Journalists whispered. The entire room held its breath. She removed her glasses, looked Darren straight in the eye, and began. "Mr. Langley, you refused to stand, not just physically, but morally. You believed your wealth gave you immunity from the law. You used people, hid behind lawyers, and laughed at those beneath you." She paused, voice firm yet heavy with meaning. "I may not wear a designer suit or grace the cover of magazines, but I wear this robe because I serve the people. The very people your empire stepped on to rise." Darren looked stunned. No words this time, no smirk. "This court sentences you to 8 years in federal prison. In addition, you will be required to pay full restitution to every employee affected by your actions, and finally, for the next 5 years, every public appearance or business talk you give must begin by acknowledging your conviction and the names of those you exploited." Murmurs filled the courtroom. Some gasped. A few teared up. Darren's head hung low. Judge Brooks leaned in slightly and delivered the final blow. You refuse to stand for this court, Mr. Langley, but today justice stood for itself. A beat of silence, then applause. From the gallery, from former employees, from people who'd never had a voice until now. The courtroom moment went viral before Darren Langley even left the building. The clip of Judge Brooks' final words, "You refuse to stand for this court, but today justice stood for itself," lit up social media like wildfire. Within hours, hashtags like Judge Brooks, Justice Stands, and Sit Down Langley were trending across platforms. Talk shows debated it. Civil rights groups praised her courage. Young law students uploaded reaction videos. Black women, especially, flooded the internet with proud messages. She stood tall for all of us. Even people who had never stepped foot in a courtroom felt empowered by what they saw. For once, the robe wasn't just a symbol, it was a weapon of dignity and truth. As for Darren Langley, the consequences didn't stop at the sentence. Tech. Investors pulled out, board members resigned. His company's value plummeted, but the real shift? It was internal. Behind bars, away from cameras, Darren began writing letters, not press releases or excuses, but personal letters of apology to the employees he once dismissed. The man who once scoffed at justice was finally learning its weight. And Judge Brooks? She didn't give interviews. She didn't seek the spotlight. She simply returned to her bench the next morning like nothing had happened, calm, composed, and ready for the next case. Because for her, this wasn't about going viral. It was about reminding the world that respect isn't optional, and justice doesn't flinch. Months passed, but the ripple effect of that courtroom moment never stopped. Schools across the country played Judge Brooks' speech in civics classes. Young girls, especially young black girls, wrote letters to her courthouse. One read, "You made me believe I could wear that robe one day, too." Documentaries began calling. Magazines wanted features, but Judge Alana Brooks remained quietly. In her chambers, still showing up early, still reviewing cases late into the evening. When asked why she wouldn't speak publicly, her clerk quoted her simply, "Justice is loudest when it stays humble." And what about Darren? After serving time, he emerged changed. Gone were the tailored suits and TV appearances. Instead, he took a quiet role at a nonprofit legal fund, anonymously donating millions to support workplace abuse victims. The media barely noticed, but Judge Brooks did. She received a letter from him, handwritten. "I didn't stand for you, Your Honor, but you made me stand for something. Thank you for not backing down when I tried to break you with arrogance." No reply ever came. But on the wall of her chambers, beside her law degrees and community awards, one framed quote now stood alone. "You refuse to stand for this court. But today, justice stood for itself." That moment didn't just sentence a billionaire, it inspired a movement. Some stories fade after the headlines, but this one lit a fire. If Judge Brooks inspired you, if this story made you feel something, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button to honor every silent voice that deserves to be heard. Subscribe now to this channel for more powerful true stories where justice, truth, and human dignity take center stage. And if you believe in standing for what's right, then share this story. Let the world know justice doesn't bow to power, and neither should we.